What's up, Kansas City, Serenity? And we have today an artist, painter, activist, Michael Toombs.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So, you have been pretty active in the arts community. How long have you been in Kansas City?
I was born and raised here in Kansas City.
Okay.
My family started at my father's family came from Arkansas, Little Rock.
Wow.
And met my mother here in Kansas City. And when they were married, as a young boy, I grew up over at a place close to Seven Oaks Elementary School. And we moved in over to 39th and Wabash. And from there throughout the city, but I've been here in Kansas City my whole life.
Oh, wow, okay. So you have an organization called Storytellers.
Yes.
Why don't you tell everyone what is Storytellers?
Well, Storytellers Incorporated is a multicultural performing and visual arts training program. We work with artists, and then we train those artists to work with the young people in our community. We try and provide opportunities for the artists to get work, to find jobs, to use their craft in the way that they've been trained, and to make a living at it. And so then along with that, because we serve young people in our community, we try and work a lot with those artists to provide services to the educational system, the housing system, the justice system. And so we work in mostly all of those realms.
Okay. Now, you have a quote. I got this from your website.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I searched you, it says, "Art is a change agent for society's difficulties." Now, where did you come up with that?
Well, that was kind of a result of some self-reflection. You know, I was trying to figure out how to get a toehold here in Kansas City as an African-American artist. It was kind of difficult in the early days. I started back in 1991. And one of the things that I feel I wanted to do, or I was being kind of urged to do, was to find a way to serve the community through my creativity rather than being like a lot of artists stuck in a studio producing something and then taking it to show and hoping somebody will buy it. So what I did was I started going out to the community, trying to find out where there were issues, a lot of them being in education at the time, and there was a lot of problems with literacy in our community. There was a lot of problems with having an opportunity to make a decent living in our community. So I started using art as a means to bridge that gap. And what I mean by that is now there's a new term in our city called art place making. Mm-hmm. And art place making is about using art as a tool to create environments where the public and artists can come together, and through that process we can help our community understand some of the things that are necessary in order for them to be safe and developed, and we help our artists understand what we need to communicate in order to have a well-rounded, well-developed community. And so rather than looking at art as something that is purely aesthetic, that you hang on the wall, we try and use art as a tool to help deal with some of the issues that we're having in our community and in our schools and in our housing developments.
Well, after that, since you brought the education up, what is interactive arts education?
Interactive arts education is a process that we came up with back in about 96, I want to say. It is where you basically create an opportunity for the people to come together. You put a brush in their hand and you say, okay, let's paint this picture, and you have some music playing. But in that process, you deal with some of the issues that they're facing. In family court, we had a lot of young people being incarcerated. So
you work a lot with Jackson County?
Yes, I work a lot with Jackson County courts and a lot with the family court system. Okay. And back in about 96, 98, we were asked if we could do some projects at McCune. McCune is no longer there, but it was a home for young men. And we took art in and allowed art to become a diversion for these young men, and during that process we were able to help them deal with some of the issues that they were having them end up in the system. People in the city created a program called Sentence to the Arts with some money that they got from the federal government, and we helped develop a curriculum to train other artists to work with kids that have been incarcerated. So we then coined the phrase interactive arts education. When people ask what is it we were doing, that's what we were doing. We were using art as a tool to help our young people as well as our adults, because right now I work through the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office, and I do a life skills program with adults who are trying to get out from under felony charges. If they complete these programs, then they have a chance to have that pending felony expunged. And so I've been doing that for the past 6 years.
So as far as like what art they do, is it mainly painting? That's it. What are all the arts that?
One of the keys to interactive arts education is that you create an art process that is accessible by anyone. So in other words, we did a mural once where we just completed a mural across the street at the American Jazz Museum. The goal was to come up with a way that anybody could access the creative process, whether they feel that they could paint or not.
Oh, okay.
So we took an image. We took several.
I personally cannot draw.
That's what most people say.
I can't draw.
We take several images from the archives, and then we reverse out all the colors so that ultimately all you have is a sketch. We blow it up to a large mural size image, and then when people come, we give them a paint brush and some paint, and we tell them to put that paint in this area. And so all they're really doing is sort of like color by numbers, but it does require something a little more because the artist has to interact with the individual in order to give them the right colors. And then when they get into that, we need to show them how to put a little shade in there and a little depth in there. And so before you know it, we've spent hours and days working together, and we get to know each other. And so the people in the white community get to work with the black community and the Hispanic community, and we all learn that we're all just alike, you know. So some of this divisiveness that's kind of put us apart and made us look at each other with these cynical views, you know, kind of that's dispelled through this process.
Okay. So, are you also an activist? Like, what are some things that you're involved in the community besides what you do with this?
Over in Wyandotte County, we spent 10 years working with the Kansas Arts Commission, helping them to develop an arts commission over there that was inclusive. We wanted a commission that would include African Americans and Hispanics as much as whites. So we spent 10 years working with the commission over in Kansas to develop the commission, and as a result, they got a great deal more money coming down from the National Endowment as a result of it.
Would this go into the 1%?
No, this money is actually,
separate?
this is separate. This money would actually go in a pot, and then they would send out RFPs to all the artists in the community to apply, and they would get $10,000 grants or $8,000 grants each year just to do an art project. And that project could be in education, it could be in the libraries, it could be in murals, whatever the artist proposed. But the unfortunate thing is that a lot of that money just kind of disappeared once Brownback got in there. And so, so now they're redeveloping the Art Commission over there, and it's not getting as much money federally as it used to.
I don't want to say too much about Brownback. He might be on our future cabinet.
I hear you. Well, he probably will, along with those others. But the sad thing is that this is probably a real important time for us to be working together to come up with ways to help our community better understand the power we have in unity, and rather than this separation that people seem to constantly put us in. You know, I know that a lot of our organizations are pitted against each other, and that's sad because this day and age, if we don't work together, then they'll have us exactly where they want us. And so when you talk about activism, this is one of the things that I like to try and do. Is I like to try and, art is communication. We're communicating right now. And as part of the communication process, I try and draw, that's part of what my organization is called, The Storytellers. I like to tell you the story of what happens.
Right, because I'm thinking of a storyteller, I'm thinking of somebody reading or poetry or
no,
writing.
we actually use the process of storytelling like the ancestors did, like our ancestor did in Africa. You know, they told stories to keep the history of the community, and the elders would share those stories with the younger so that they would know the stories of what their elders went through. Our young people out there don't know a lot about what we've contributed or sacrificed in those who came before us. And so now we're living in unique times where we have all these young people running around out there who really don't have anchors, they don't have roots. And so when you don't have roots, you don't have value in anything. So when people look out there and they see these young people tearing everything up, the reason they can do that is because they don't have any value in anything. No one's taught them anything. So we need to start teaching our young people about the contributions and sacrifices that our elders have made in order for us to be able to have the things we have today, and be assured that the way things are evolving out there, the things that we have today could be very much gone tomorrow. There's already things in motion to make that happen, and if you have a question about that, continue to pay attention to this program, because we will have more conversations like this in the future.
Now, tell us about the 1% initiative in Kansas City.
The 1% for the Arts program in Kansas City, Missouri has been around for a long, long time. I walked into it in 1991. In 1991, I met Heidi Bellardo, who was the director of the 1% program at the time. And I just wanted to know more about what it stood for. You know, I was trying to find out who was all doing something out there that was important in the arts, and I wanted to get connected to that. And that was my method of getting involved. The 1% program is a program that was established by the city of Kansas City. Any city municipality that has tax dollars in it to renovate or build, such as Bartle Hall, for instance. When they expanded Bartle Hall, the 1% money that they set aside paid for the sky stations, which are those large aluminum structures on top. I mean, that was well over $1 million. It's probably up into the $2 and $3 million range. So an artist is then selected by a panel that they pull together, and then the panel looks at artists that are interested in doing the projects, applications, and then they call people in and they interview them, and if they're granted that money, then they get the chance to coordinate the effort to produce an artwork for that project. Now, there's several projects around the city that have 1% money attached to them. The Kansas City Zoo's had 1%. The KCI Airport has had a 1%. Municipal Auditorium has had, or Bartle Hall, has had a 1%. The police department's had a 1%. So these are some of the areas around the city where 1% money has been used. The sad thing is that a lot of that money has not come into any of our pockets.
And you mean
the black community.
Okay.
We have not gotten hardly any of that money,
right.
if any.
Okay.
And so part of the reason is that, we don't have the same opportunity in developing our craft or our skill as artists nationally who have large studio spaces where they can produce art larger than canvas, larger than a small room in your home.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do a mural on just a
canvas.
And
nowadays, they're actually looking more in the area of three-dimensional art rather than two-dimensional or one-dimensional art. So it makes it even that much more difficult because you have to have the space to be able to do bronze, pour bronze, sculpt, grind, all these kinds of things.
Yeah, most studio apartments
just won't let it happen. And it doesn't mean that we're not just as talented or just as qualified. It just means that because we don't have the same resources, we're always left in the dust on things like that, and that's a lot of money that's being spent here in Kansas City. You're talking on an annual basis, $3-4 million, probably even more, that's being spent that we see very little of.
Wow.
So Heidi and I worked on some things that kind of kept the 1% program going. When I met her, the council was actually trying to do away with the program. We fought as artists to maintain the control of the 1% program under the Municipal Arts Commission. As years went on, and Heidi Bellardo came in, not Heidi Bellardo, but Blair Sands came in as interim director and took Heidi's place when she moved on. I reached out to her and worked with her to continue to maintain the Municipal 1% program under their control, from not under the council. And then after Blair left, then of course we had another gentleman that came in, and he basically, Porter Ornell came in, and then it was his task to facilitate 1%. But still, to this day, we are still struggling to get 1% money into the black community. I feel like that, they may have their reasons for not giving those grants to our communities, but I feel like that if they have an issue with the quality of art that is being produced in our community, then why not take a little of that money and use it as a means to develop those artists so that they can better compete. Their voice is just as strong. What they have to say is just as important. I feel like we need to make efforts to make sure some of that money is kept in this city, because a lot of the artists that are being granted these funds are coming from other cities. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so tell us about the AfricanAmerican Artists Collective. I know that's something it's new, but just kind of give us a brief background of that.
Well, it is actually developing. Sonny Ruffin, who's a pretty well-known artist here locally, Does
She's
a lot
a
of
quilter.
she's a quilter, and she does a lot of curating over at the American Jazz Museum. And we've worked together for a long time. She ran a gallery for some time up on 31st and Truce, quite well, I might add. Her and I had a long conversation and felt it was important that we start trying to find ways to pull the artists in our community together so that we can better compete for some of the dollars that are being dispersed. The beginning of that is a collective. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who feel like, we've tried to do this before and it didn't work, and I don't want to get involved in another movement and another initiative. Well, to be quite honest with you, that right there is the very mindset that keeps anything wonderful from happening in our community.
That's true.
We have to not always walk in looking into what's in it for me. Sometimes we have to do what we have to do for the right reason, which is what is best for our community. I've always believed that if you work hard for our community and do the things that are right, then the good things that you're supposed to get will come to you. And it always has for me. And it's not because I walk in the door with my hat in my hand. It's because I work really hard. People know that I work hard. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And so I feel like this is the time for our community to find a way to work together, to bring these artists together for more than one reason. One reason being that we can leverage more support for our community as a group rather than as individuals. The second reason is that we got a lot of young people coming up behind us who have even lesser opportunities than we had. And unless we are willing to reach back and give them a leg up, like I'm sure some people gave us, some of you might feel like you never really got that, but that don't mean you have to be the same way towards these young people. They need a hand, and they need some help, and we need to create opportunities for them to be able to develop their craft and their voice. Because I guarantee you, in the very near future, we're going to all need that in order to combat some of the changes that are coming down from Washington. We better start trying to find a way to work together right away. Otherwise, otherwise we won't have an opportunity to do anything other than stand there and take it, on the face.
Right, that's true.
So the collective is a means of trying to find a way to bring these artists in the city together so that we can start having some discussions. Someone brought up in a meeting about the importance of what happens when the first money comes, and then you know what? This is not an opportunity. This is not a request to bring people to the table to get money. Some money may come as a result of it, but as an artist, I don't have any fear about what I can make for myself. My goal is going to be to try and help you find ways to utilize the system as I have. Okay. And so if you have a desire to want to understand more about what's going on in the arts, if you want to know what you can do to contribute to the process that is developing as it pertains to the arts in our community, then you need to come and find out what this movement is going to be about, because it's going to be about a lot more than just art. It's going to be about creating a voice for our community, creating a voice and opportunity for our young people to understand what they need to do to strengthen their position as things continue to change. And also it might provide insight to those of you out there who have always had a certain appreciation for creativity and art, but also wanted to understand more about what you can contribute towards strengthening your community. Because there's a lot of dollars coming down the pike here soon for the urban core in the way of development that is going to affect you one way or another, and it would be really good for you to come and be a part of something that might give you some insight as to how you can mold that into something that's going to have a greater and more positive impact for you.
So how would somebody get in contact with you if they want information on Storytellers or the collective or anything like that?
Well, at this point, I'm going to suggest that they contact this program.
Okay.
Because I feel like that while we're in our development stage, we want to kind of know who's paying attention, who's listening, whether this program is making an impact. I'd love to be able to continue coming back and having more discussions like this on this program so that we can hopefully reach more and more people out there about what's going on, what needs to happen, how arts can be used, how can some of the attributes associated with the arts be used to better help prepare our community as well. So if you have a real interest and you're curious about the meetings that we're going to be having, let's get in touch with the station. Let's give them information on how to reach you, and in that way we can send out a blast to everybody and let them know where the meetings are going to be, that kind of thing.
Okay. Well, so everybody will have to get in contact with me. So my email address is serenitywhatsupkc@outlook.com. Again, that's serenitywhatsupkc@outlook.com. So thanks for coming in.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me here.
I look forward to seeing everything that you're involved in coming to fruition.
And I'm looking forward to coming on this program more, and I hope that we start to create a pretty big following, and that this will help your station do some really wonderful things as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Serenity, remind Spit Your Peace, and make sure you check out whatsupkansascity.net.
I'm IFBB Bikini Pro Cat Williams, and when I'm not working out in the gym, I'm searching the web on Cascade Media and What's Up Kansas City. So make sure you check them out.